Vice Chair, I should call this meeting to order at 2:03. And Billy's just given me the script for remotely conducting open meetings. So here we go. As a preliminary matter, this is BPAC. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Dave Fredericks.
Here.
Campbell Sutton. Campbell, are you muted?
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm here.
And Laura Walters.
Here.
Thank you. Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Billy Side.
I'm here.
Good. Anticipated speakers on the agenda, please respond in the affirmative. So Rob McNeil.
Here. Sorry, I was muted.
Mickey Rowland.
I'm here.
Matt Fee.
Here.
Is there anyone that I've missed here? All right. So it's introduction.
One thing.
Yes.
Sorry, Ian. Sorry.
Interrupt.
Rob is only able to stay with us till 2:45. So I wanted to see if you wanted to motion to move his agenda item to the top.
I'm happy to do so after I think haven't I got to finish the script here?
Yes. I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah. Okay. So good afternoon, everybody. This open meeting of the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings. And as such, the governor's orders suspend the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted with agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. For this meeting, BPAC is convened by Zoom as posted on the town's website identifying how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that all attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you and to take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All supporting materials have been provided. Members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda. We are now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I, the Vice Chair, will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the Vice Chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking, and please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes, excuse me. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in a conversation with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. After members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment to those members of the public that have joined the meeting via Zoom. Members of the public who wish to speak must state their names and be acknowledged by and speak through the chair. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. Okay, so with that dispensed of, I move that we move Rob McNeil to the start of the agenda so that he has adequate time to present and answer questions before he has to go at 2:45. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is that Dave Fredericks?
Yes, it is.
Okay, by roll call, Dave Fredericks,
Yes.
Campbell Sutton,
Yes.
Laura Walters,
Yes.
and Ian Golding, yes. So Rob, you have the floor.
All right, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. And thank you to BPAC for having me back. I want to run down these projects listed here under item B, update on the ongoing projects. Feel free to stop me along the way, but there's quite a bit to churn through. I'm happy to come back and revisit any or all of these items. So in the interest of time, I'll just start at one and work my way down through. Medicaid bike path. Right now, there's and I looked through the packet. I did provide Billy with some sketches and plans depending on the status of each draft of these. So you may have seen them. I just didn't see them on this particular packet that's attached to the meeting invite. But the long and short of it out here is we're taking a look at the entire bike path system island-wide. It's about 35 miles of bike paths, you may know. And each stretch has been built in a particular decade. So we're taking a look at not only pavement condition and some level of safety record, but also signage and pavement markings. And we're trying to ultimately work with our consultant to come up with a methodology a current methodology that we can apply proper signage and markings island-wide for consistency and for increased safety. So one of the locations that has come to our concern is the Medicaid bike path crossing at Medicaid Road near Eel Point Cliff Road intersection. And so the concept is basically to move the path further away from Medicaid Road at that critical crossing to make the crossing and the connection between the roadway and the path more safe. And so that's kicking the path out about 30 feet from its current location and for a stretch of about 400 feet along the Medicaid bike path. We've been working together with the land bank to make this a reality. And so Select Board approved this at their last meeting or the meeting before. And we just got approval this morning actually from Natural Heritage to proceed with the cutting. So I expect that project to move forward fairly quickly and be completed this fall. Secondly, we have Milestone Rotary, the transitional safety area. Many of you know Monomoy bike path was just completed. I call it the 4-day bike path because that's what it took Victor to cut it in and construct it. So opposite that at the area on the Wannacomet water side of the Rotary is basically what's known as essentially the busiest spot on the island for bicycle and pedestrian traffic as far as everyone using that area. The problem becomes that there's no transitional area between the crosswalk and the paths from Old South and Milestone that come together right there. So the concept here is to give those people using the paths and the crosswalks adequate transitional space in that very, very busy hub on the island. So the concept here pulls the Old South Milestone bike path away from the intersection into a currently wooded area towards the direction of the Wannacomet Water Company headquarters, and then essentially provides a transitional space between the path, relocated path, and the Milestone Rotary at the intersection. This is another concept that was approved at the select board at the same time the Medicaid bike path crossing was, and something we're going to be working together soon to get completed before next summer. The idea there is to keep as much of the existing vegetation as possible, introduce some rest areas for patrons who are using bikes or walking the paths, making decisions on where they want to go next, or in some cases, having lunch and just enjoying the area, or getting together with a group to go for a longer bike ride or something like that. So providing a little bit more of a out-of-town bike path experience in the Mid-Island area, where the paths, particularly the Milestone path, is open to the vehicular traffic. This would be a spot where we'll do a decent job in trying to maintain some existing vegetation and get the bikes and pedestrians separated a bit more from the vehicular traffic. Island-wide bike path pavement signs, markings, improvement summary. I mentioned that briefly. The consultant is working on a final report, and once that is out, I'll share that with the committee and come back to get your input on that. One thing we are looking to work on in fiscal 21 here is going to really take a look at targeting bike path improvements that are going to include widening the original paths that were placed at 8 feet wide, trying to identify the best areas to widen the paths to 10 feet, generally in areas that see pretty high volumes of bikes. So that's one of the goals there. Signs and markings we talked about briefly, and I want to come back and get some feedback on driveway crossings and intersections because we have some ideas that I think folks on the BPAC will be pretty excited about that basically include speed tables for driveway crossings that would give essentially the right-of-way to the users of the multi-use paths. So more to talk about that. We have Surfside Road Crosswalk and the Safe Routes to School project. This is a project that was initiated and fostered through the system through the transportation planner. And right now, those duties are being shared between Andrew Vorse and myself. That project is moving forward, and that's about as much as I know about that. I don't have a current schedule for you, but it does include improvements on Surfside to bring a consolidated crosswalk across over to the high school. Downtown sidewalks, we have completed Judith Chase Lane. That we worked out, did some additional sidewalk work on both Fair Street and Pine Street for the abutters to the project, and we've received really good positive feedback from all involved. We have completed our sidewalk improvements in the Washington Street area between Coffin and Salem, and just took advantage of the recent water main break where Salem Street was disrupted and needed to be repaved. We're able to work together with the water company on the restoration of that area to include handicap accessibility improvements to Salem Street sidewalks as well. So beyond that, we're moving in the next direction, continuing down Easy Street, and essentially from the bulkhead out to Broad, and then lower Broad up to the Juice Bar is our next targeted area. And we will be meeting shortly with the Nantucket Historical Commission to get some feedback and input on that stretch of the next phase of that project. BPAC, I would only assume that you all have the plans created back in, I think, 2018 through the Transportation Planner's Office for that stretch. If you don't have them, or even if you do, I'll make sure that Billy gets that set, and we can talk or get some feedback from you folks specifically about that area. Mostly in concept, the sidewalk along Easy Street from the bulkhead to Broad was being eyed for potential widening. We're going to see what happens with the finalization of the Easy Street Park that the land bank is currently constructing, and so they're going to complete the sidewalk in front of their park, and then we'll pick it up from there. Beyond that, the feedback that we received quite a while back in 2017 and 18 regarding Lower Broad Street and all the businesses along that stretch when we were rebuilding South Beach Street after the sewer force main failure was basically the businesses are not interested in excessively widened sidewalks, that they like the sidewalk widths the way they are. They just want the surfaces improved for walkability, much like we've done on the projects that we've completed to date. One other quick one was Commercial Street. That was completed recently as part of restoration to a National Grid upgrade project. So we took that opportunity to have the contractor get involved and reset those surfaces as well. In-town bike path, Orange Street. There's not a specific phase listed, but Andrew and I have been working with our engineer, VHB, to reimagine how to get the bikes from the Rotary essentially to Goose Pond safely through the Marine Home Center area. It's probably one of the most challenging. We've met with some of the stakeholders, including Hatches, who have at least conceptually agreed that it's a great idea to push the fueling pumps back further to give us a bit of flexibility in designing through that whole stretch of Orange Street. We are looking at, we're coordinating with the land bank to take a look at long-term bike path locations through or adjacent to the Otison property from the Rotary down through. But in the short term, one thing that we're looking at doing is working along the shoulder of the road within the town's right-of-way from the Rotary, basically right where the Monomoy bike path pops out, all the way down to the Landmark House at East Creek, to widen the shoulder in such a way that we have a uniform bike lane that whole stretch. Right now, that stretch of bike lane varies in width from about 4 feet out to almost 10 feet in one specific location. And that variable width tends to throw some less experienced riders off from feeling confident in using Orange Street as a bike facility. So we're trying to provide a nice uniform, probably a 6-foot width for that bike lane going into town. And if there's enough space gained in widening the shoulder there, we may rebalance the existing lane lines throughout that stretch of Orange Street from the Landmark to the Rotary to give equal width to the bike lanes and then keep the same widths that we have for the vehicular lanes. So we're looking at that, and hopefully we can bring that to bear before next summer. It's really not a lot of work. It's just about scheduling it. Goose Pond path bollards. I do remember this, but I do not have an update on this. Someone may also have that. We can come back to that. Sparks Avenue is part of a Sparks Avenue, Williams Lane, and Pleasant Street engineering project that Andrew and I are working on together with our consultant Beta. Sparks Avenue is being looked at under the state's Complete Streets projects and includes widening of the sidewalk to accommodate a full 10-foot wide multi-use path. And so we're taking a look at that, of how to tweak Sparks Avenue to accommodate this all the way down through the roundabout and beyond. The project limits have been extended down to Newtown to be able to design that appropriately to accept what we expect will be coming shortly, even though it didn't make it with the recent funding request, but Newtown sidewalks at some point, or a path down Newtown over to Fairgrounds. Pleasant Street includes taking a look at on-street parking, and we've already made some interim changes with the fire department exiting for their new building on Fairgrounds. We have reconfigured some loading zones and sight distance issues that were long since in place to accommodate the fire apparatus around Stop and Shop and the driveway into 131 Pleasant Street to offer additional parking spaces. So that's been welcomed. We also have worked with Traffic Safety Committee and the liquor store to now bring in and allow a loading zone, an off-street loading zone on the 131 site, which really helps dramatically improve the traffic through the summer. So that's been helpful as well. Let's see, Williams Lane. We talked about Williams. We're trying to bring sidewalk to Williams and have initiated some conversations with abutters to really take a look at reimagining Williams to allow a sidewalk on one side. It would tie into either a sidewalk on Pleasant Street, and that's something that we've been working together with the consultant and kicking around some ideas between traffic safety and the select board regarding looking at a one-way option or a pilot from the five corners down to Williams, and that the one-way concept doesn't seem to be having any success, but pedestrian access from Five Corners down to Williams. We've been meeting with some of the abutters to take a look at where that would be most advantageous, and we're going to continue those discussions. Wawinut Road, we have...
Comment, Rob, can I map it for you real quick? When we did the comp plan, the Mid-Island plan had at one point had set up a one-way traffic sort of where you're talking, but it went all the way around Pleasant, and it sort of circled the whole area. And the advantage of that would be to get bike lanes. It would give us an easy way to have a bike lane all the way into town. You know, we could have a separate lane if we didn't have two lanes of traffic on one of those streets. So I think it's an idea to continue to explore.
I would say that we're still talking about it, and it's not off the table at this point. I think it's just a challenge without answering the questions of what happens at these other intersections if we are only allowing one-way traffic on that stretch of Pleasant Street. So there's a bit of complexity to it.
And through the chair.
So Wawinut Road.
Okay.
Go ahead.
No, I would just like to say, I mean, I think conceptually, theoretically, the one-way concept works in the brain, but, there's a lot of traffic that having two-way traffic mitigates when you have both of those sparks and Pleasant functioning with two-way traffic, that suddenly you would have all of that traffic on one road. So I think the practicality of it also needs to be considered a lot there, as well as the idea that you brought up earlier, where a lot of the people in the summertime and most of the year are recreational bicyclists. They're not, when they're not here, they're not driving through Boston and dealing with traffic. They're here with their families, with pull-alongs, and the whole troop with them. So I think the more rural the nature we can keep the bike paths and access, and maybe put in a large bike parking area where people could get, go to park their bikes and then walk that whole area if they wanted to go to, one of the restaurants or stores or what have you, might facilitate the type of bicyclists that we get here. Just as a thought.
Thank you, Campbell. We have Wawinut Road. Transportation planner and I applied for a federal grant for a path on Wawinut. And interestingly, this summer, with tremendous increase in bike use around the island, we heard quite soundly from the Wawinut folk that the bike path out there can't come soon enough. We haven't heard the results of that yet, but we heard early on very positive things and a high level of interest from the feds on that. So hopefully we'll hear soon. Tom Nevers bike path, the concept is well underway. I should say the 25% design is well underway, and we should have a draft soon to share for feedback. Wynn Street, I would say, is sort of an extension discussion about the whole, Mill Hill over to Medicaid Road connection, and that discussion has been renewed. I've been speaking with members of many committees, including Roads and Right-of-Way, and COVID had kind of put some of this discussion on hold. But with the amount of traffic, particularly bikes and pedestrians, I think that most of us encountered on that short stretch of Prospect Street between the end of the bike path and Quaker. Milk Street, Quaker area. It kind of renewed that discussion. And so I anticipate the Roads and Right-of-Way making some recommendations of prioritization soon to probably traffic safety and BPAC and the select board to be able to move some of these projects forward. Raceway Drive, we're finishing up the drainage design for that project. That's Somerset Raceway intersection. The phase one, that's the project basically, is drainage improvements along Raceway. It includes some alignment changes with Bartlett Road. So instead of a abrupt 90-degree corner at the bottom of Bartlett, it's going to be a softer curve through a parcel of Hatch Circle that softens that curve. But it also allows us to continue the bike path on the south side of Bartlett, and it will stay on the south side of Raceway, come up to a newly constructed bus pull-off area at the intersection with Somerset, and set up the bike path to connect with a formal connection that would be an extension of the bike path up to Hummock Pond Road. And that section from Somerset up to Hummock Pond Road has already been conceptualized, was privately funded, and designed by a local engineer. So there's already discussions of extending that up, which would be a really key connection. So that's underway and expected to move forward in the next year or two. We have Bartlett Farm Road. The only thing I know that was being discussed down there was sidewalk, and I don't know the status of that. But I will jump over to C, which is review of the reconstruction concept for Washington and Francis. That project concept was approved at the select board a few meetings ago, and includes the sweeping out-of-town turn to along the truck route in through what used to be the formerly the NISDA property. It's sort of a mirror image of the other side, which is Francis at Union, and depending, there's some minor utility changes that need to occur within that area, but for the most part, that project is moving forward pretty rapidly.
So, Rob, I have a question through you, Ian.
Yeah.
Sure.
So at our last meeting, I believe, which was in February, I believe concept 4 was the one BPAC had approved. And I'm wondering if that is the one. Now, it's hard in this Zoom because I don't have any of the pictures you're talking about. So I'm just wondering
Sure.
if that is concept 4, and if it is, then I just had one little comment I'd like to make.
So I could try to describe it to you. I'm sorry, we don't have a plan up on the screen to
Well,
discuss.
I can share my screen. I have it if you guys want me to share it.
That would be preferred. Sure. Yes, please.
Okay. Hang on 1 second.
Do you, Rob, do you also have concept 1? Are we talking only about concept 4 or concept 1 as well?
I don't have any of them in front of me.
Okay.
I think it's a different thing.
Concept 1 has 3 stop signs, and concept 4 has no stop signs. So, well, let me rephrase that. No stop sign on Washington Street going to Washington Street Extension. So,
Well, so my main concern here, Rob, is that that intersection is being given over wholly to truck traffic. And then we're also trying to include a recreational bike and walking path. And as we know, a lot of people bike and walk. And one of the things I noticed all summer, like I would be in favor of a 3-way stop there, because all the pedestrians and bicyclists kept having to look over their back to see what was coming. And that sort of didn't facilitate watching what was going on ahead of them, and seemed to, I just thought things might run smoother for pedestrians and bicyclists if all the vehicular traffic had to stop while they either went across or went to the right up Francis Street like that. So that was really my main thought.
thank you, Ken.
So what we have noticed, and the feedback that we got, we were able to take I'll say the preferred alternative, which was incorporating comments from BPAC, traffic safety, and others, including the first crack at the select board when we had last gone before them over the winter. That included, oh, thank you, there's concept 1 there. So if we go all the way to the approved alternative concept 4, I'd be happy to just explain what we did do. Now, so that doesn't have the approved design on it, but
So we're basically combining 4. Is that the idea?
So what we have is we have a crosswalk that is it's a bit of a long crosswalk from the corner of, I believe it's Meter Street, to the corner of Washington Street Extension. That's kind of shown on option 4 there in that green bike lane. So instead of recognizing it as a bike lane, because we really don't have the space for a bike lane, what we decided to do was just make it a crosswalk. So it's a crosswalk, but we also focused on encouraging bikes that are already in the right-of-way and sharing the road with vehicles. We encourage them to find the new in-town bike path by highlighting on the road with sharrows. So we did multiple sharrows through that intersection before, within, and beyond the intersection of Washington and Washington Street Extension. And so coupled, there's 3 sharrows in a row, one near Meter Street, one sort of right before the turn, and then one after the turn on the outbound lane, or the outbound lane on Washington Street Extension. 3 sharrows, and then that with the newly placed crosswalk in thermoplastic is a bright delineator to encourage bikes to go straight across. And this year, for the first time, we've seen tremendous increase in people finding their way to the end of Washington Street Extension and using the newly constructed path. And I think that's mostly because of the new painting that we did as I described. The only thing that's going to change is the sidewalk will be pulled back in where that turning lane is, and the stop control is going to remain as is. There's going to be stop control at the end of Francis Street, and there'll be stop control coming out of Washington Street Extension. And so there still will be a Belgian block island that is going to serve to just delineate the lanes clearly between the outbound lane and the turning lane from Washington Street Extension heading out of town. But the Belgian block island is going to be flush and allow for trucks to be able to sweep through there.
Right, but so to your point, I'm not.
Campbell, if I may, since Rob only has about another 5 minutes and he wanted to get back to bicycle signage in general, which is on our agenda, I wonder if we could ask Rob to focus on that in his remaining few minutes.
Sure. So you were talking specifically, you were breaking up there a little bit, Ian. Were you talking about bike path signage and markings?
Yes, and you know, this whole concept of nuisance signs and how a lot of them contravene our actual traffic regulations. And you know, there are a number of private roads that have stop signs on that it shouldn't. And so I'd like you to address that if you might.
So with regard to the bike path, or I'll call it the multi-use paths, signage and markings, one of the things we're working with the consultant on is designing what I would call a flush or through path at these various driveway and minor intersections, which would allow for the construction of what I would call speed tables through the driveways, so that bikes would have ultimately the right of way through these areas, that vehicles would be forced physically to slow down, and in cases where people were entering or in those particular crossings, that they would have the right of way, so the vehicles would have to stop. But in the interim, because in some cases you have moving vehicles coming from both directions, you have vehicles in the driveway and you have bicycles or other users on the paths that may not physically be in the path, if no one's there, the vehicle is still forced to slow down to be able to cross this table. And so that is similar to what we've seen other people incorporate. Some private driveways have stop signs installed on both sides, but that's not been the norm. And so we're looking at introducing something that's standard for off-island, which is the use of green colorization to let people know that there's bicycle facilities there. So those are the kind of things that we're kicking around. I expect to have the report back from them and start discussions with the various committees involved to get their feedback to take these concepts forward and hopefully incorporate some of these into a pilot project before next summer. So this is something that we're hoping to bring to bear. At the same time, we are looking to repair areas that have some transverse cracking, as well as widening from the old 8-foot widths out to the modern 10-foot widths. So it's a combination of things that we're trying to bring to bear, hopefully in a fairly reasonable stretch of roadway of path, so that people can really take a look at it and experience it and give us some real world feedback.
Thank you. That sounds like a distinct improvement. But for instance, on the Pulpus Road, there are 5 private roads that have put up stop signs or the stop signs on the bike path. And a number of them don't have stop signs on the actual private roads. And speaking for myself, I'd like to see those removed. They contravene our traffic regulations and the state regulations. And the Pulpus Cranberry Bog is a good example where there's 4 stop signs where it arcs, including one that's been added. There are 4 new stop signs that have been added since I sort of Harvey and I did our count. And on the main road right now for Tolpit Road, Milestone, Russell's Way, and Chuck Hollow Road that are private roads, they all have stop signs against the bicyclists. And
Yep.
So thank you. That's a good example, right? Of where.
Yeah, Pulpus is, we'll talk more about it specifically, Ian. I have some ideas to share with you, and I apologize that I need to leave, but I appreciate the time with the committee, and I look forward to future discussions.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you.
All right. Have a great day.
Take care, Rob.
Okay, so Campbell, I do apologize for cutting you short there, but I did want him to try and address that. So I hope that.
No worries.
Thank you. So, all right. So I'm not sure what else there is to really discuss at this point, except that I know, Mickey, that you want to address the design issue on Francis Street. Would you like to go ahead?
Yes, thank you, Ian. Just as a little background, I'm on the traffic safety work group.
Wow.
And I was really the only one that had any real concerns about their concept number 4. To me, it looks like it works pretty well for trucks and cars, but it doesn't really consider bicyclists and pedestrians terribly well at that intersection for the new design. So if you can bear with me, I wrote down some notes regarding my concerns. And Billy, I don't know if you can put up, did you get the plans that I forwarded to you?
I think,
I don't believe, did I forward them to you, Ian?
yes, you forwarded Mickey's 3 pages and included concept 4 and concept 1. And then I printed them out. I don't know how many other people got these or not.
I
Em,
didn't.
you didn't?
No.
Can we put that on the screen?
Let me, give me just a few minutes. I'll get them pulled up.
All right, I'll begin because I've got just several notes that if you don't mind, I'll just read from what I wrote earlier. So my biggest concern is that first of all, the concept for it doesn't fix the current problem, which is that cars driving south of Washington Street don't need to stop. Most go right onto Francis Street, but some continue straight onto Washington Street Extension. Because most of them don't use their blinker to indicate which way they're going, those cars heading into town waiting at the stop sign on Francis Street must wait until it's clear that the southbound cars are heading onto Francis Street before they leave the stop sign. This is only an annoyance waiting as car after car turns without a blinker. But the bigger concern is that bikes are harder to see, especially at night. The bikers heading out of town have the right of way to continue straight through without stopping. But the inbound cars are only looking for car headlights and can easily miss a biker heading directly across their path in the dark. At the moment, the road is relatively narrow and the traffic goes reasonably slow. But once the curve is widened to accommodate trucks, traffic will flow much faster. Not just those going onto Francis Street, but also those going straight. So far, we've been fortunate not to have a serious incident at that intersection, but it seems that we're not improving the safety of that intersection, but making it worse. Another issue is that currently the crosswalk at that intersection crosses 2 lanes of traffic and is relatively simple and safe. Cars are slowing down considerably to make the sharp 90-degree turn onto Francis Street, and the other lane is stopped at a stop sign. The proposed design adds a 3rd lane of traffic to cross and more than doubles the length of the crosswalk, leaving the pedestrian exposed much longer than most crosswalks do. I feel that this is not improving the safety to pedestrians, but rather making it much more intimidating and dangerous. So scroll down to number 4, if you could, Billy. There you go. That's the proposal, as best as I could recreate it. Another concern I have about this concept is that bicyclists heading into town on Francis Street are stopped at the stop sign and wait for a break in the traffic leaving to heading south, and they don't have to stop. We don't have a stop sign. When one car heads onto Francis Street, there's a break, and they can now dart across the intersection. But what if the next car goes straight onto Washington Street Extension? The bikers are much slower than the cars and are still in the middle of the oncoming traffic lane as the car drives straight through. What if it's a group of bicyclists all heading across in a bunch, such as a family with children who need to stick together and also may have a bike trailer? This intersection is on my daily biking commute into town in the summer, and I've been in that exact situation many times. I'm able to cross pretty quickly, but many times the car has had to suddenly slow down to avoid hitting me as I cross in front of them. Families will be exposed for much longer. So one other concern is that the last concern is where there are 2 merging lanes of traffic in the middle of the intersection with no clear indication who has the right of way. Cars or bikes leaving Washington Street Extension and heading left onto Francis Street are directed hard left onto a short lane, which quickly merges into a curved lane heading south out of town. And now, because of the generous curve, they're driving much faster than they do now. It's confusing and dangerous. So,
Through you, Ian, that I think is what Mickey is talking about is what I'm speaking of when I was asking about the stop sign. I thought that should be a 3-way stop. It's not just bicyclists. I can't tell you how many people go down there with their suitcases and backpacks, and there are groups of people, and they wait, they congregate waiting to get across because they're not sure if they can go or they can't go. And then they're waiting for, one of your local drivers. Yeah, sure, go ahead, and they think, oh, good, yay. So I think a stop sign would really help facilitate movement of these multiple forms of transportation, from foot to scooter to truck to car to bicycle.
So Billy, could you scroll up to concept number 1? This was the other one that the Traffic Safety Committee, thank you, was looking at. In my opinion, this is really all we need to do. I think it just makes it the whole intersection much simpler. It creates three-way stops. Everything slows down and stops while, you know, pedestrians cross a much shorter crosswalk. And, you know, I'm bringing it back to you guys because I just want to make sure that the town is really considering bicyclists and pedestrians in this crosswalk, this intersection. Concept 4 just concerns me. I think it's too confusing, too big a space, and it's just not as safe as it could be. So thanks for listening.
Well, I have a question, Mickey, which is how is it discussed at traffic safety? Because it would appear to me that it's designed to move traffic out of town as quickly as possible. And I absolutely take your point how it would slow traffic down, clearly, if there was a stop sign there on Washington Street. So what happened when this was discussed at traffic safety?
Well, you know, Ian, it would slow it down a little bit coming into that intersection, but there's another stop sign at Union Street. So is it really slowing it down, or is it just sort of pausing it before it gets to the next stop sign?
No, I'm not trying to argue one position or the other with you, Mickey. No, I was curious as to how it was discussed at traffic safety.
Well, it was presented by, I guess, I'm not sure who presented, Art or Rob McNeil, Art Gasparo. And, you know, they had kind of, I think they had sort of decided that the concept number 4 was what was their preferred choice. And, you know, I tried to argue a little bit just to review number 1 a little more clearly, and they all disagreed. You know, they voted 4-1 to approve 4 and send it on to the select board.
I have a question. The option 1, which was just up on the screen, was that the original, or is that your revised one? Is there something different on that one than before?
That is you know, the engineers presented 4 concepts, and this is concept, the one that I showed you earlier was concept number 1, although they didn't actually show a stop sign leaving town on Washington Street. I'm suggesting that we add that stop sign to make it a 3-way stop. But, you know, I think, in my opinion, they put concept number 1 as their first choice. I mean, that's how we usually present options, as the best option first. So my thinking was that was what they preferred, the engineers.
I'll speak. We voted this at select board meeting. We didn't really have the pictures up. I thought I was supporting you know, sort of concept 1 or a variation. I didn't realize it was a 70-foot crossing. So I'm kind of with Mickey on this. And I think if we wanted to try to make a difference, you know, make a change, we would have to vote and send a recommendation to the board to reconsider this. And I voted. So if we wanted to, that would be our path. The other issue, I received I forwarded it to Jason and Ian earlier. I received a email today that had from the state, and they were doing a survey of who had bike boxes in their communities. And I really thought about it. We don't have any bike boxes anywhere. Basically, it's a box that goes in front of the cars, and the bikes all queue up and they all go first, so it's safer. And I look at option 1, and I would say put a bike box in it, you know, so everyone queues up and then goes across together to Washington Street, and then the cars can all go again. And I think as a bicycle safety committee, if we made that recommendation, I think it would at least make people realize that more than cars.
It's Dave Fredericks. I would happily make a motion that this be reconsidered and ask the engineers to provide their detailed discussion, theirs, on any concerns related to safety in the intersection. I would like to hear from them as experts as to, did they really think number one was a better choice? And if so, why? And how they feel bikers can move through this intersection safely, because I agree with everyone's concerns and comments. There's a tremendous amount of confusion. And once those vehicles start moving through at 15 miles an hour or 20 miles an hour as they make that corner, there's going to be no time to deal with the people who are confused and step out or ride a bike out or try to cross. So I, is it prudent to ask the engineers to come back? And that would be the recommendation, and explain how they feel, how safety is impacted by option 1 or option 4.
So, Dave, I concur with you, and thank you, Nikki. I'm wondering how we could phrase this so it goes beyond just going to the NP and EDC. Matt, do you have a suggestion?
I don't really. I agree with his motion.
Okay.
Provided we asked, did they even consider a bike? Doesn't seem like we're saying they did something wrong, because that never worked. Well, but if you have concerns, will you help us?
So, Dave, would you make your motion again, please?
My motion is that we ask the selectmen to suspend and reconsider their decision related to this intersection, pending an open discussion with the selectmen by the people who designed it, to understand the safety concerns that they might see with each of the options.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Excellent. So by roll call, Dave Fredericks,
Aye.
Campbell Sutton,
Aye.
Laura Walters,
Aye.
Ian Golding, aye. So that passes unanimously. And thank you, Mickey, and thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
So, all right. So let me see. The only other item, I think, on action and discussion items was the Adopt a Bike Path program. So, Billy, do you have anything?
Excuse me, Ian. I believe we go over A, or was that the same one you asked him to speak on?
Oh,
Traffic.
no, we didn't actually. We didn't actually recognize it formally, and so I think in the package is the pictures I took of the Isabel's Way going out of Sconset on the Palpas Road, Isabel's Way, Barnard Valley Road, the Palpas Cranberry Bog, Almanac Pond Road, Alter Rock Road, the private way on 129, 135, Drew Lane, Moores End Lane, and Kelly Road, all of which basically have stop signs that, up asking, ordering bicyclists to stop, and without exception, almost without exception, no stop signs for vehicles. And
Ian, I would just like to commend you and others who put in the Massachusetts general laws, I believe section 9 pertaining to these, because I think that many of these signs have been put up without these bylaws or what have you in mind, because when we were talking about it last winter, you know, we were all supposed to be looking for signs, and I thought, well, we shouldn't have stop signs on bike paths when they're going uphill, because you know, the bicyclist isn't going to stop. But with these, section 9, I believe really helps us take a look at these more objectively.
Thank
So
you.
thank you.
Yeah, and also we posted the traffic rules and regulations of the town. And so that is, thank you, Billy. Could you go back to that previous? So that is I think the only, oh, well, the,
Oh,
anyway, I would like to see all these nuisance stop signs removed. And they clearly have no legal standing. And my understanding is they actually jeopardize the legal rights of bicyclists. So Isabel Way is a classic example. You know, there's like 4 houses down there. I don't know. And that's a new stop sign since last year. There was formerly only 1 stop sign on it. But it sounds as though Rob is well aware of this issue at this point. And so I don't know if we'd like to make a motion to have the stop signs conform with state and local regulations.
I could support something like that.
Is it?
Ian, it's Matt again.
Yes.
Yeah, or maybe we make a motion and ask the select board to discuss this with the engineers again. And maybe we ask it under the same meeting to have clarification, and because I think this is, you know, I agree with you, the nuisance signs, and I also think it's setting up the wrong expectations. The cars are the people crossing the traveled way, not the bikers. The bikers are not crossing a traveled way, they're on the way.
Right.
So, you know, except on, you know, when the bikers are going across Milestone or Dionis Road, then sure, they're going across the traveled way. But when they're going down their bike path, they're not in, that's different. And I think we should try to ask the engineers to clarify that.
I think that's a very good idea. Matt Campbell, would you like to make a motion along those lines?
I would also like to include the DPW in that, because I'm not sure that all of these stop signs are actually engineer generated. Do you know what I mean? They may have just been considered a good idea by somebody over the years within the DPW without regard to these rules.
Matt again, or through traffic safety. Traffic safety gets a recommendation. They go, yeah, okay, that sounds good. And that happens.
Okay, so I think my motion would follow with Matt's, but I would like to have it in accordance with these, how did you call those, Ian? Well, it's section 200.21.17 through 200.
State and local traffic regulations.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
Yes.
Is that?
So the motion is to recommend the Board of Selectmen review with the engineers of the traffic safety protocols. Traffic safety. What I'm trying to get at is to get what we have aligned with what we legally should have.
Well, I would say that one would want to make a motion to bring the stop signs on the bicycle paths in
compliance with
the state and local regulations.
Correct. That's exactly.
Hang on, I think there has to be an explanation with it. I think if you say that, what may happen is they may come back and say, you know, the state put these up and these aren't in conformity. See you later. I think there has to be, if we send a letter, there has to be a preamble saying, you know, here's this rule, here's what it means. Therefore, we'd like them to do it. I mean, you have to make sure, coming from this committee, it's clear what you want.
So do we need to have some of the pictures like Ian had included as examples for each of these? Not that they're an exhaustive list, but that they would be examples of, or should we have an exhausted list of each?
I mean, I think you could do it as an example, or you could do the exhaustive list that Ian and Harvey did.
Harvey did.
You could give them the exhaustive list and say, but I think the key thing is, here's they have to understand, or we have to understand as a board, here's what's happening. It seems to conflict with state law, and it's making things more dangerous. How do we get this fixed? Can you please, fix this and only put them at the major intersections? And I think that's the request.
Yes. Okay.
Well,
Sorry, I'm not very good at making motions. I'm not terribly experienced with it, but so it's like we're asking the select board to consider the local examples of conflict, or you had used a good word, a conflict with state posting regulations. We're asking the select board to look that over.
Dave Fredericks, are you still on this? Or has he disappeared on us?
No, I'm here. I'm just listening.
Well, we seem to be making a fire hash out of this with so many different ideas into it. So
I have to, it's Matt again. I have to go in a couple of minutes. I have another thing at 3:30 and the select board at 5. So.
I think it's as simple as saying that you would like to propose that you are looking for critical intersections identified on list A to be reviewed relevant to applicable state codes related to the unique issues around roads and private roads and bike paths.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you're asking for.
Yeah. So
and you're asking for it to be done by the engineering team that's looking at other intersections on the island.
So could we
here propose signage on intersections on private roads and driveways be reconsidered by the engineers, by traffic safety engineers?
Yes, that are, yes.
that are currently looking at the bike paths through the DPW, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right. You're certain. Right.
So currently consulting for the DPW.
There you go.
Okay, so here's the motion. A proposal that the signage on intersections on private roads and driveways be reconsidered by the traffic safety engineers that are currently consulting for the DPW. Does that work?
Yes, I just have one complicating issue, and that is that road that came in, the fellow was killed on his bicycle coming out of the Alter Rock and the bogs, etc. Is that a road?
Well, it's a dirt road. Okay, thank you. Thank you. So let me rephrase that. So propose that the stop signs on demarcating intersections on private roads, driveways, and dirt roads be reconsidered by the traffic safety engineers that are currently consulting for the DPW. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Can you just say that one more time with, you
Sure.
said private roads?
Private roads, driveways, and dirt roads.
So what, I just have a question, what this would count as. There's when you're going up Pulpus Road, and I don't, it's right after like mailbox 114, that's why I always know to look for it. On the right, there's a land bank parking lot. You can walk to like Coot Pond back there. What would that, because that's kind of crazy because it's where the bike path dips down and goes back up. So bikers on both ways are going downhill. And I've seen so many near accidents of cars pulling into that little parking lot. Is that parking lot considered public then? Because it's not a private road. It's not a dirt road. I think it's paved. I'm just wondering, like, with something like that, is that covered under that list?
Does that have a stop sign on it on the bike path?
It doesn't, but I think it should have a stop sign on the road.
Yes, on the traffic side.
Right.
So, but I was just curious, if something like that. Like, I guess in my mind, I'm trying to figure out why you have stop signs some places and you don't other places, and what the rhyme or reason was when they put them up.
Address. And
Let-
go ahead, Dave.
I was going to suggest, because we have limited time sometimes in these committees, I would get the question out there. Personally, I would see it as a victory if the town ultimately changed its process for some of these more complicated issues by having independent people like traffic safety engineers review them with a concern for things like what we're talking about. And if we can get that to start, and that's a process that we could repeat, that would be the home run, because we'll never make a list of every intersection or think of every right word to capture everything that has to be looked at. I think what's really wrong here is these intersections have gotten, all of these issues have gotten really complicated, and we need advice from trusted consultants that want to tell us the truth. That's really what's broken.
Yeah.
We rush through them. We rely on traffic safety, who quite often they're bad people in any way, but they're pushing things through for because of time. And some of these require a lot of thought, and it would be great if the process got changed to allow critical intersections to maybe be more thoroughly vetted before a decision was made.
So
For
then
me,
my-
that would be.
Thank you.
So
Thank you, Dave. I absolutely agree. And Matt, I know you have to leave in a few minutes. Do you have something to say?
Yeah, and I agree with Dave. The key is who is directing the engineers, who's directing the specialists. Whoever's sort of running them is going to be the ones influencing kind of what comes out sometimes. They're not necessarily, agnostic. They know who they work for, and they know kind of what the goal is. And so if the goal is to move more cars more quickly, and that's their marching orders, hey, review this from bike, BPAC, but those guys are a little crazy, and and do what you need to do. If that's the direction we get one thing. If they say, hey, look at this, we really want to improve bike safety and multi-use on Nantucket, we might get something different. So to Dave's point, I agree, but who's giving the direction, and what is the direction they're giving?
Absolutely.
I have a quick question, Ian. Should we vote on the motion that was made before this?
Go ahead, Matt. I think Matt's just disappeared on us. So yes, Campbell. That's. I'm sorry, I'm not running a very Robert's Rule meeting here, I'm afraid. But we had a second.
Yeah.
Billy, do you understand the motion?
I might need another run through of what that motion was.
Okay. It was to propose that the stop signs demarcating intersections on private roads, driveways, and dirt roads be reconsidered by the traffic safety engineers that are currently consulting for the DPW.
Okay.
So, and I had a second from Campbell.
Mhm.
And
then the DPW on bike paths, because I think the DPW is specifically looking at bike paths.
so let's have a roll call. Campbell,
Aye.
thank you. Dave,
Aye.
Laura,
Aye.
not you, sweetie. Excuse me. My wife is Laura. And Ian, aye. So that passes unanimously. And with that, I think we, unless we have other business, we should approve the minutes and then adjourn. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Excellent. A second?
Second.
Second.
Excellent. By roll call, Campbell,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Laura,
Aye.
and Ian votes aye. So that's unanimous. And then for an adjournment, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Second.
Okay. Dave,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Laura,
Aye.
Ian, aye. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of the windy day. Thank you
Okay.
for attending.
Thank you.
Take care, Mickey.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, guys. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Billy.
Thanks, Billy.